A big shout out goes to Maxxis Tires, Jensen USA, and Fox Shocks for supporting the Inside Line. Welcome, mountain bikers. Thanks for tuning into the Inside Line podcast. I'm your host, Sean Spomer. I'm stoked to have Ben Plenge on the show today. He's a rider, he's a racer, but he's also the founder and coach at the Strength Factory in the UK. Ben, thanks so much for being on today. I'm stoked to learn about fitness, training, the body, and how it all relates to mountain biking.
Great to be here, Sean. Thanks so much for having an Englishman on your esteemed podcast.
No problem at all. So I've been watching your videos and they're obviously super informative, but they're also entertaining at the same time. So nice work there. They feel real, they feel authentic, and it looks like you've put a lot of work into those over the years.
Yeah, I'm trying, man. That whole YouTube game is a tricky beast. Just trying. Yeah, I guess so. It has been years and years to get to the dizzy heights of 5,000 subscribers, and then this year I've been paying a videographer as well to help me out with that stuff. But yeah, just what I'm all about, Sean, is I guess, yes, I train some pros and stuff, but it's just talking plain English to people, minimal jargon, minimal nonsense, and just like anyone listening, any rider can be a bit fitter and a bit stronger. And there's always a way that we can help you do that. That's basically what it boils down to and what I try and get across in everything I do.
Yeah, I think that comes across really well with what you've put out there. So we'll get into everything, but I want to start out with just a little fun one to see what it may be. But what's the worst or best excuse you've ever heard from someone for skipping a workout?
Oof, worst or best? I mean, every now and then when you've got a new client and you get started with them and they like, I can't come today because my legs are still too sore from last time. That's always funny. I'm trying to think. I might have to get back to you on that one. I can't think of like a really good anecdote or like real clanger off the top of my head. It will come to me halfway through and I'll just blurt it out. I'll see what I can do.
Okay, that sounds like a plan. So I went through Roots and Rain, and dude, you have results going back to 2001 in a hardtail class. Can you just kind of give us some background and history of you getting into bikes and then ultimately into the fitness and coaching world? Just get some history.
Yeah, for sure. So, well, I'm 43 now. So mid 90s, I moved on from my like crappy sort of kids bike and my first rally BMX and all that sort of thing, a rally burner. And I can't even remember how I discovered mountain biking, but I think there were some like cooler, slightly older kids at school who were into it. And I liked riding my bike, and I saved up and I managed to get a Kona Fire Mountain in 1995, Project Two Forks. And, at the time the Konas were quite forward thinking in their geometry with the low top tube and everything and the straight fork and everything. And I was absolutely stoked on it. And I just rode that thing into the ground, really. And from that point, I was basically obsessed with bikes and riding. Although it took me quite a long time to actually get any good at it, if I'm honest. Most of your podcasts, you have a pro and they're like, yeah, I just got on it. I went to a race, I started winning, but I was pretty crap for quite a long time, to be honest. I always had aspirations to be a sporty teenager, but I was a real late developer. I was like small and boyish when all the other lads were like young men. And I wanted to be sporty and wanted to be good at my bike, but I probably wasn't as coordinated as I should have been. And but it didn't stop me anyway. I just kept cracking on, and I rode a bit of BMX, and then went off to university, which you guys would call college, and that's where I then found like my tribe of people, like the university mountain bike club. And it was basically I was into cross country then, basically, and we would go out twice a week, Wednesday and Sunday, if not an extra time as well. Just do great big cross country rides on our hardtails, or I think by then I had a 80 mil travel Judy or something on my bike. I'd gone up in the world, and did a few XC races, and started to get a bit fitter, started to get a bit better, but it had taken a while, and rode a lot of BMX as well, like street BMX in Portsmouth, where I was at university, and they had this really rad like skate park there with concrete bowls and stuff. And to me, where I grew up, there was just nothing like that, whereas, and the funny thing is, talking to you over there, is that you'd always watch the videos, and in your head, like the whole of America is like California, and every street corner's got a concrete skate park and bowls and amazing street spots. And finally, I was able to ride a skate park for the first time at the age of like 19 or something. So, that was like the early years really where the bug really bit.
And cool. So how did you progress? Like looking at your results, a lot of it's, kind of enduro based and everything. So you're enjoying XC and riding with your friends in college and stuff. How did it progress to getting more serious?
Yeah. So it's funny because after university, I was absolutely just mad for it. And that's all I wanted to do, is ride my bike. And then kind of on a whim, I joined the army actually, Sean. So as you do when you're about 21 years old. And then I basically didn't ride through my whole 20s.
Wow.
It was crazy. I mean, I always had a bike, and I'd come home on leave and go for a quick lap of the woods for old time's sake. But these days, certainly in the UK, I don't know about over there, mountain biking is a really big sport in the military now. Whenever you go to a race, you'll see all the guys and girls there in their army jerseys, their navy jerseys, their Air Force jerseys. And it's a really big thing, and it's funded and all this stuff. Whereas when I was in, two things were different. Number one, it wasn't even recognized as a sport in the military at the time. It was this weird thing, and people thought it was a bit strange. And then, when I was in through my 20s, so from 2002 to 2010, it was obviously Iraq and Afghanistan, and the whole army was just flat out busy. I spent 8 years in, only spent about 3 years of 8 in England, lived all over the world, did tours of Iraq and Afghanistan.
Wow.
And basically, my mountain bike was just used for transport, for riding around camp, basically, so I didn't have to walk everywhere. And so then I got out the army at age 30 in 2010, and I had a bit of money saved up, and rather than doing anything sensible, I went to my local bike shop for where I grew up, and went and bought myself a Trek Fuel EX 7 or 8 full suspension, my first full suspension bike. And I thought I just couldn't believe how good it was. I thought, oh my goodness, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it was a great bike, it was a wicked bike. And then the last sort of 12, 13 years since then, I've just been chipping away, just haven't stopped riding, and then gradually got better, race very much because I enjoy it. I don't think I race seriously, certainly not since I had kids anyway. When I'm at a race, I give 100%, don't get me wrong, but it's always fun. I'm not, if I have a big crash at the race or don't get a good result, I'm not getting angry or pissed off or anything. Like, that's not my style. I'm there to go camping for the weekend with the boys, and just to ride different tracks and to see what I can do. And that's it really.
That's awesome. Well, it doesn't sound like your splurge on that trek was all a bad idea at all anyway. So
no, money well spent actually.
Yeah,
that was,
for sure.
That's a wicked bike.
When did the training and coaching, when did that, enter into your life? Was part of that being in the army and having the discipline that you learned there? Are those two connected at all?
Yeah. So it's funny really. As long as I can remember, I had this sort of interest in a bit of training, even at school and stuff. There was a school cross-country run, and I didn't have a clue about training. I'd never read anything about it, but I just had this idea that if I went for some runs, I might do better at it, and kind of that. And then to get myself ready to join the army, I thought, well, I better go for some runs and I better get better at press ups and pull ups, and just kind of wrote some like really basic, but it was all right. I turned up in all right shape to the army. And then through that 8 years, you just learn a lot. I started like weight training in the gym, like after a couple of years in the army, and just basically doing like bro sessions with the boys, basically bench press and bicep curls, never doing leg day or anything like that, and just running. And we mostly just wanted to be bigger, to look like big tough soldiers, and to pull girls on the weekend and stuff like that. So just wanted massive arms. And when I look back, I realized I made loads of mistakes and picked up niggly injuries and stuff, but actually I did get bigger and stronger and figured a lot of stuff out from reading the magazines and all of that. And then I guess by the time I got out, I realized, how much I enjoyed training. And a big part of being in the army is training other people and coaching them and things like that. Especially in my position, I was a captain, I was an officer. So, you're always delivering training to soldiers or different groups of people. And, I quite liked that sort of teaching, that sort of aspect to my previous life. And then the two things sort of came together. I thought, you know what, I'm going to do a personal training course when I leave and see where it takes me. And I started off normal personal trainer, in a big commercial gym in London, punching out the hours, just trying to hustle on the gym floor, trying to get clients, and just very much learning the trade, like how do you actually go about doing this? It's like anything, I'm sure if you go to school to be a carpenter, you then go and do it for real, and you learn the real way of being a carpenter or whatever it is. There's the textbook, and then there's the reality. And then off the back of that, I just I was loving riding so much, and I must give credit to, I guess, a few of the forerunners who made you realize that this path I've chosen could be possible. And that's, what's his name? James Wilson, MTB James.
Yeah.
Or you probably know, and a lot of your listeners will certainly know. I remember looking at his stuff like years and years and years ago and thinking, whoa, okay, well, this is a thing, and selling the PDFs and all of that. And then finding out a bit about Alan Milway as well, who obviously we know, probably the most decorated coach in the game with all the rainbow jerseys he's probably got on his gym wall. And kind of realizing, oh, you know what, that I could do something like this. And my wife and I, we were living in London at the time, and I'd set up a boot camp by then as like a, it was basically mums in the park running around doing press ups and stuff. It wasn't like style. I wasn't shouting at them and barbed wire and stuff. It wasn't like that. It wasn't gnarly. No, what's his name from Full Metal Jacket? It wasn't like none of that nonsense. And we were just spending all our weekends leaving London to go mountain biking, to go climbing, to go to the hills. And so we're like, we need to get out of here. So we moved down to Bristol in the southwest of England, because I'd seen in a mountain bike magazine, MBR magazine, the readers' poll had voted Bristol the best city to live in the UK if you're a mountain biker.
And that's why you chose it.
Yeah, for real.
That's awesome.
So my wife and I, we had a few weekends away just to check it out. We came here, we brought our bikes, we rode some trails, we went with some food, we wandered around. We're like, yeah, Bristol's sick. We didn't know anyone. I didn't have any industry connections or anything. We knew, I think, one person in Bristol, and we just said carpe YOLO, got in the van, moved down, and we were literally lived in our camper van at the start, because we did van life before it was mainstream and cool after COVID. We did van life a long time ago.
Okay.
But, so I converted my first Volkswagen T5 van back in 2011 or 2012 or something. So but yeah, that's another story. But so we moved to Bristol and then started the Mountain Bike Strength Factory, which is now the Strength Factory, because I look after some motocross racers and some, like, a skier and a couple other bits and bobs, but it's still mountain biking at the core of what I do.
Okay. And what year was that when you moved down there and started it
I
all?
moved down. So yeah, we got married 2013, and then we moved in spring 2014. So actually, 9 years almost to the week.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, I have a bucket load of questions about training and all that, and maybe as we talk, it'll open up your path from starting it to where you are now. But I think it might have been the most popular video on your channel when I just sorted by most popular, but it resonated with me because I'm old. I'll be 50 here at the end of the year, but
no way.
your over 40 training video. I went in there and I thought it was super interesting and it felt really down to earth and there wasn't a lot of pressure. It, applied to a variety of different people and different types, but can you just talk about why training might be different for someone in their 40s versus a 20 something? And I also like the line you said, something to the effect of, like, don't worry about carbon wheels. Instead of spending money on that stuff, invest in yourself and get fit, lose weight, and that's going to make you a better rider than buying carbon wheels. I thought that was pretty cool to hear. But can you kind of discuss, I mean, you said you're 43 now, is that what you said? You've recently turned 40. So I guess it hits home for you, but can you kind of walk through that topic, I guess?
Yeah, definitely. So there's the changes, I guess, physical changes in your body, and then there's the changes in your life and environment that tend to go with a lot of people at that age. And so, I don't know about you, but I've got 2 kids, so
Yeah, me too.
one of the days, which is amazing,
Mm-hmm.
but gone are the days of riding both days on the weekend,
For sure.
and, and exactly. Today I had to, like, sneak a ride in. I literally managed to sneak in a 45-minute ride because I'm on the Parent Teachers Association. I had to meet someone because I'm running the Village Fun Run next week. and it's just all this crazy stuff. And all of a sudden, time is the big crunch factor, really. It's fitting in around work and family and all that stuff.
Yep.
And even if you don't have kids, a lot of people just have more commitments, I think, as they get a bit older compared to maybe in your 20s. And then there's just the simple facts of what your body can tolerate and recover from, and what it can soak up. Like, when I think back to the amount that I could do in my 20s in the army, just getting, like, thrashed, like, day after day, running and circuit training and all of that stuff. And if I did that volume of work now, I just wouldn't recover. I would just get further and further behind the curve until something broke down, And I'm sure you remember as well, like, in your 20s, you pick up a little niggle. Maybe, for me, I'd play a bit of, like, soccer, football, whatever. Maybe you play a little basketball. I don't know if I'm being a bit.
I'd go towards soccer way before basketball.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
But and, like, you get a little knock on your knee or something, and or turn your ankle a bit, and you just, I'll just run it off, and 2 days later it's better. Whereas now, if I if I went and played football tomorrow and twisted my knee, I'd probably be in the physio for 6 weeks or something. It's just, you're just different. I don't ever want people to think that we're fragile, or that you need to be scared, or that you can't do stuff, because you can. I think you just need to play the long game a bit more, where, I want to live to 100, and I want to be mountain biking into my 80s, So I reckon, a bit of luck, I've got 40 years of riding to go. That I say that only slightly jokingly. I think I'm actually serious. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you should be.
Yeah, exactly. But in order to get there, I need to, get strong, keep my aerobic fitness, keep my basic mobility, look after my general health and eat and sleep and all that good stuff. But the big part of that is just, playing that long game and thinking, I could do this right now and it would be really fun, or this really hard workout, or, oh, my back's just tweaking a bit. Fuck it, I'll just do it anyway. And actually, that's rarely works out, So I guess, and then the other bit that I talk about in that video, and I have talked about more across a wide variety of training topics, is it's just like looking after yourself in that mental and emotional way as well. A lot of people, modern life, the modern world we live in is definitely different to 20, 30 years ago. I think there's a lot more going on, a lot more stresses, a lot of uncertainty. And for a lot of men in particular, in their 40s and 50s, it's a really tough time figuring out your sort of place in the world. And, all that, people have their midlife crisis or whatever. And it's just being kind to yourself and looking after yourself, and, whether it's talking to someone, but even things like trying to remove and minimize stress in your life, making sure you get enough sleep, all those things are kind of like soft parts around the edges of training become even more important, I think, as you get older.
Yeah. It's interesting, the philosophy of taking the long game, and it's okay if you're not riding 5 times a week. Maybe you just have one good ride a week, but that's your goal, and that should be fulfilling.
Yeah. And it's exactly, and not feeling, comparison, I think, is the enemy here. And what have we all got in our pockets that it's like the nightmare constant comparison is our bloody phones and social media, and you'll look at it, and number one, you'll see all these young riders and these pros, or even just like random people, and you're like, and you look at your phone, and number one, you think everyone's faster than me, everyone's sending it harder than me, everyone's training harder in the gym than me, everyone's leaner than me, got bigger arms, they're like, and it's so easy to get wrapped up in that, and actually realize that, you just got to remind yourself what we all know. We all know that stuff's a load of nonsense. You're seeing this edited, scripted version of reality that the algorithm feeds you. And you just do the best you can to get outside, to move, to walk, to run, to ride, and all that sort of thing. And another one of the things that I've sort of said over the years on other podcasts and on the videos that I think relates to everyone, but maybe more to the older crowd, is just trying to be a better human, because better humans make better riders. And so we're not always maybe thinking about this whole idea of sport specific, where everything is, and actually it's really about how can I just be a better human? Like what can a good human do? Well, they could probably go and run 5K, or 3 miles. They should be able to do some press ups and some pull ups or chin ups, they should be able to jump and throw and, just be versatile, so that, I should be able to say to someone in their 40s, right, next week, you're going to go and do a 5K obstacle course race. And you don't have to win it, but I think that any human in their 40s or even 50s should be able to go and jog around that for an hour and probably make it across some monkey bars, climb over that wall, and all of that stuff, and just be a well-rounded human. And the better human you can be, the more potential there is for you to be a great rider, because we all know what makes a great rider is the skills. And so if you've got a body and a mind and a balance and coordination that is able to learn and develop new skills and is robust enough to crash and is fit enough to go out, a couple of times and all of that, then that's kind of where I'm at these days with the way I think about coaching, and especially that age group.
Yeah, interesting. Do you feel like that came about because of like the proliferation of social media and maybe what happened during COVID and all that? Like, at the start of your business and kind of your focus into training was that mental and kind of well-rounded
Mm.
vision. Was that as much a part of what you did, or is that just
Mm.
crept
I
up
think
recently?
I think I would have thought it was, and I probably tried, but whilst how to put this? I think that as you get older, and especially since having kids, is I've got a lot more empathy these days, Sean.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't, yeah, I don't think I was lacking empathy, but I don't think most 30-year-old men who just got out of the army are like overflowing with it either, to be honest. Is that, it's quite a hard environment. Like I was in an infantry battalion. I lived on camp with 400 men, you know, and now, yeah, I'm going to bloody PTA meetings, and I've got a 5-year-old girl and a 3-year-old boy, and and I think that learning to be kinder to myself and generally more open with the idea that to be kind to everyone I meet and to be open and, fair and have empathy and things like that. I think that, my age, the fact that I'm in my 40s as well, does make me relatable to the people who watch my videos and buy my programs and stuff. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that helps. And it's genuine because, yeah, as you said, it is how I feel. I think it's the best way to coach people, treating them as humans in every sense of the word. And just, yeah, I think I've just got more empathy as I've got older, which probably means I'm getting soft, but
No way. Nope. Cool. I want to get into some specific questions about training and just kind of get your insight on things. So, what about people who don't have weights, or they don't have machines, or they don't ride with a computer or a heart monitor? Are there ways that they can effectively train still? I know the answer is yes, but I'd like to
yeah, yeah,
hear how and why.
100%. So I guess the first thing I'll say is all of those things, whether it's a dumbbell, a barbell, a Garmin computer, they're all just tools, to get the job done. And training is all about, rather than getting focused on the tools, it's about the principles, where we're going to apply a training stress and then recover from it. And then you make an adaptation and you're a little bit fitter or a bit stronger, whatever it is. And so if you don't focus too much on the tools, then yeah, let's take those two examples. The no weights thing, okay? Obviously, the weight you have is your body weight working against gravity, okay? And yeah, for a lot of people, yeah, doing body weight squats, if you're quite fit and not overweight, is probably quite easy. But then let's put you on a single leg, and now we're going to do some squats, maybe onto a low bench or a box or something, a single leg box squat. And it's all about control. And there's a lot more going on now all around the hip, ankle, and knee to stabilize everything. And now these are the sort of things that really tie in with my outlook of being a better human to be a better rider, And similarly, you can use different positions that put you at a disadvantage and things like that to make an exercise harder, or the other way to make it easier. The only thing that I'd really say is a non-negotiable for bodyweight training is you've got to get yourself a pull-up bar,
Hmm.
Otherwise, all of the upper body work pretty much ends up being pushing, i.e. press ups. You call it push ups, I think, but yeah,
Okay.
press ups, push ups, or in handstand positions and stuff like that. It's all pushing your hands away from you, which is great. We need to do that, but to get a really well balanced workout and to look after your shoulders and your posture, we need to be pulling as well.
Hmm.
So you don't have to buy loads of weights. They're really expensive. They're heavy. They take up loads of space. But I am going to say you ideally need to get yourself a pull-up bar to balance that out, or you can just get a couple of resistance bands as well, and you can use those to pull on as well to kind of balance things out. The other thing you said there about like not having a bike computer or heart rate monitor and things like that is, I guess the first one I use is an anecdote that I read. Now, I don't know if this is still the case, but it was only a few years ago. And Yolanda Neff, who's obviously pretty good at bikes, I think she had
Uh-huh.
yeah. And you'd probably say pretty fit, yeah.
Yep.
I think she had some rainbow stripes at the time, maybe, I can't remember. And she said, "Yeah, I don't train with a heart rate monitor, just train by feel."
Hmm.
And I absolutely loved that. I put it on my social media. I was like, "Look at
Yeah.
this," because I've got a bit of a bee in my bonnet actually that I was ranting about on my social media this week with just so many people. And let's face it, it's mostly middle-aged men actually with like $500 like ridiculous watches on that have got 1,000 features they don't need,
Hmm.
and it sends them social media updates and they get emails and calls on it, which is the last thing you need when you're supposed to be logging off and actually enjoying your bike time.
Hmm.
And they're so complicated. They need charging, they need updating, and all this stuff. And I do all my heart rate training with, well, what probably be like a $50 basic watch with like 2 buttons and a heart rate strap. And it's just as effective. In fact, it's way more effective because it's so simple to use
Hmm.
and because I actually do something with the data. Whereas most people, they wear these watches, maybe they wear a chest strap, and then they get to the end of the ride and they press the button and they're like, "Oh, cool, that's nice. That was my max heart rate. That was my average. That was my calories. Cool." And that's it. And then they put the watch down and carry on their day. And then it doesn't. Why have you got it for that one moment? Because it was interesting, or is it actually informing your decisions on how you approach your recovery or what you do the next day? Or did you really use it to plan an effective training session and then implement it on the bike? Because 99% of people with that stuff, I don't think do. So that was a long-winded and slightly on my high horse way of saying that you don't need all that, I think.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to hear because it does seem like it's so easy to get distracted and just not even get to the heart of what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just think this idea that all this technology, and look, don't get me wrong, I'm sitting here on my MacBook and I've got an iPhone and I've got an iPad that I use in the gym for work and stuff, but it's all sold to us that it's making our life better. But I
Yeah.
think so many things, they're robbing us of our time. Like I've had like one of those watches in the past, and you get it and then you've got to update it and plug it in, and then you've got to download the app and then sync it and then this and then that, and then you've got to charge, and you become a slave to it, and
Mm.
it's not making my life better, it's not making my training better. And there are people out there who use all the features, and if that's you, crack on. And some people love gadgets. Cool. I'm not
Hmm.
saying don't buy one, but I think most people, again, it's like the carbon wheel thing you said earlier. Don't spend $500 or whatever on a ridiculous Garmin or Sunto or whatever watch that you're never going to use. It's just decoration. Get $100 watch. It will do just the same stuff.
Hmm.
Spend a few $100 on some shuttles or some fresh tires or one of my training programs or whatever, you know or,
Hmm.
or, or go and see a coach or trainer at your local gym and get them to teach you how to squat and deadlift. you
Hmm.
know
Yep.
that is playing the long game, and that is going to make you a better human and a better rider.
Cool. I like it. Kind of continue down this topic with this doesn't apply to just being old, but kind of the 9 to 5 kind of person. But you had that desk posture video, which I
Oh yeah.
thought was really interesting because I'm at a desk all the time, and um, yeah, I thought that was really interesting about correcting your posture if you're at a desk, just getting up, taking breaks. Can you kind of run through some of
Yeah.
the the things people might be able to do if they are stuck at a desk all day, how to alleviate the kind of the consequences of that lifestyle?
Yeah, man. I'm impressed. You really did do some proper homework here. You've been right into the depths of my YouTube, which is
No way,
cool.
it's awesome.
So I guess first of all, I mean, what's the problem? I mean, the main one for me, and it's twofold really, and let's really make it about mountain biking to sort of push it home, is that when you spend all day sat at your desk, you tend to end up with your shoulders a little rounded forward and your chin kind of just pushed forward as well, that little bit. So you get that kind of like rounded upper back, that chin forward position. And this really, over time, that chronic exposure to that position, it becomes more normal and your body adapts to it in certain ways. And I think you can see that just walking around the street in the population these days. I think you can see that we're all on our phones too much. But then you get on your bike, and let's start first of all. So we're going for a ride, and you're going up the hill. Well, straight away, my shoulders are rounded forwards. My upper back is kind of rounded forwards as well. And it's just going to make it harder for your ribs to move properly, for you to breathe properly, Similarly with your neck and that head forward position, if I'm guessing you're sat at a desk now. Just
I am.
really push your head forward as far as you can. Push your chin as far forward, and now breathe and feel that resistance. Everyone at home, why don't you do that as well? But seriously,
Yep.
push your chin forward and breathe, and you can hear it possibly. There's that resistance. Now, draw your chin in. So you get a bit of a double chin, and imagine the top of your head's being pulled up by a bit of string. And now take a breath, and you can feel it's free. Everything's lined up. Yeah.
Yeah, my chest can lift up so much more easily.
Yeah. So you just draw in. It's just that little thing there. But the more time you spend at your desk and the more hunched over you become, that ability to breathe, both in terms of your airway through your like neck and your throat, and then also the ability for your ribs to open and expand becomes really compromised. So straight away, it's harder work to get to the top of the hill. Okay. And then we're going to go down the hill, which is what we're all about, isn't it? That's why we're grinding to the top. And then you stood up in your like attack position or ready position, whatever you want to call it, stood on your pedals. And then just imagine again, like your upper back in kind of like rounded forward. So in order to look up and look down the trail, and let's face it, every pro rider, what's the one tip they say? Look ahead, look ahead.
Look ahead. Yep.
That's what they're doing that we're not. For you to look up and really look ahead, you have to put a really acute angle on those vertebrae in your neck, to actually lift your head up enough to do that, to really look down the trail. Either that, or you're straightening your arms and really lifting your chest so you can actually have your head up enough. And then we're getting into the realms of, now look, the knees are bending. Now the weight moves back. There's no weight on the bars. There's no weight on the front tire. And now we're riding like a total squid, So, and it's maybe a little exaggerated, but posture is everything, in terms of day-to-day life, and then in terms of riding as well. Because, what makes the best riders in the world so good is that no matter what is going on underneath them, is they maintain a really good posture on the bike. I don't just mean their upper back and shoulders, but I mean their whole position. And we've all seen like Loic Bruni's back, like rock solid, really strong. And no matter what's going on, it's just so, you look like you could iron a shirt on the back of there, because it's not moving and it's just like boom. And that's what separates those top guys, compared to the rest of us, is that, we'll go over something, maybe you do a little head nod, or, you just lose your riding posture, or your weight moves back through the turn. And that's why you don't carry the exit speed, because your front wheel pushes, and all of that. Whereas the best riders in the world, or just the best rider in your local woods, maintains a really great posture on the bike, no matter what's happening under their tires.
Can we explore that a little bit more by talking about different body types? Because I have really short legs and a really long torso versus someone who may be the opposite. Are there different techniques that could apply to someone like me versus someone who's super leggy?
Yeah. So just trying to think about, I mean, do you mean in terms of like riding position and things like that, or more just like training approach?
Probably both. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever you'd like to
Yeah.
talk
So I
about.
think that someone in your position, maybe where, you've got a really long torso, like you may find something, that's maybe more stressful on like your lower back, for instance, or something like
Hmm.
that. And so, but on the whole, I think, the training approach is still the same, but maybe, the person with the really long legs or the person with the shorter legs, they're both going to do things like squatting and deadlifting a bit differently. They're going to look different doing it. They're going to set up in a slightly different position. And, maybe that one of them has, deadlifts with their hips really high and one deadlifts with their hips really low. One of them, similarly, one of those people squatting is going to be squatting with quite an upright torso, and then maybe you're going to then the taller person maybe have a more forward torso and things like that. And so I think it's more about making the exercises work for the different body types and their needs and their different levels of mobility. I don't think I would specifically approach training differently for someone with like short legs or long legs.
Okay. Have you ever thought about, training based on the asymmetric stance of riding a bike? Like a rider has a favored forward foot,
Mm.
and how that might affect, like I'm left foot forward. So I feel like my right leg is the stronger one because that's where I'm putting a lot. It feels like, that's the leg that's tired at the bottom of a run. For
Yeah.
instance, do you ever deal with that? Do you encourage riding switch, like anything like that for the, kind of the
Yeah.
permanent
So
imbalance?
every winter, I'll try and give my riders a nudge to do two things. I normally say to them, this winter, at the end of the race season, let's try and do two things. Let's spend some time on flat pedals because they all clip in all summer, basically, and
Hmm.
most of the year. Let's do some time on flats, just work on the basics. Some of them listen, some of them don't, I'll be honest.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, also, I do think it's a good skill to have to be able to ride switch, especially for guys racing Enduro World Series, Enduro World Cup, whatever it is, where they've got some really long stages, and the ability to maybe switch feet is quite good for like resting a little bit and
Hmm.
taking the train. Aside from that, one of the things that I look to improve as a coach when I get someone in the gym, whether it's an athlete or a 40-year-old dad, is to try and get a bit closer to symmetry
Hmm.
in terms of their mobility, like left to right, both in terms of like legs and shoulders, hips, but also in strength as well. So, mountain biking in that sense, when you stood on the pedals, is one-sided in that, split stance effectively. But we'll work them in a split stance with both feet forward, and the goal is to try and make them as symmetrical as possible to make them a well-rounded human to then
Okay.
go and ride the best way possible. I'm not giving much thought to which is their favored foot, except sometimes maybe if someone's doing loads of riding and they're not used to it, maybe they go away on like a week's holiday or something like that. Maybe they normally ride once or twice a week and then they get a week's vacation, sorry. And they go and ride a bike park and they go to Whistler or whatever. And then you're spending all day, every day with that one foot forward. And then you can just get a little twisted up, you can get a bit of a
Yeah.
tight lower back and things like that, where
Yep.
I'm the other way around, the other foot to you. And I've certainly been aware of it when I hit Morzine in the summer and stuff, just that, your hips get a little twisted towards that front foot. They can do. And so you just need to kind of look after yourself a bit and do a bit of mobility in the evenings and foam roll the legs a bit and stuff like that to try and look after it. But I'm not really paying too much attention to which foot's forward.
Okay. Cool. Good to know. We mentioned breathing a little bit, talking about posture, but do you have any breathing techniques, or do you work with riders or clients on specific ways to breathe during a downhill run or, like an XC lap or anything like that?
100%. Yeah, I'm well into all this hippie breathing stuff these days as well.
Did you read James Nestor's book?
Yes.
Yeah, that was fascinating.
It's literally within arm's reach as I talk to you now.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm in my bedroom because it's better sound, soft furnishings. Yeah, and then there's that Patrick McKeown book as well called The Oxygen Advantage, which I'd really recommend.
Okay, yeah, I'll check that out.
Yeah, and then the work by online as well. You should definitely give Brian McKenzie a follow. I'll ping you a link afterwards if you want to pop it in the notes for people.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So before we get to a downhill or a cross country, first of all, we need to be able to breathe properly now, just sitting, chilling, sitting, watching TV, sitting at your desk, walking around and that sort of thing. And that starts with nasal breathing. You should be able to nasal breathe. You should be nasal breathing the whole time, basically, at rest and low intensities, mouth closed. There's a whole host of benefits and reasons for like stress and health and efficiency, which is like a whole other podcast. And whilst I've, to go right into the weeds of it is quite full on. But that's where we need to start is you don't want to be a mouth breather. There's a reason why all those like stupid cartoon characters when we were growing up, they all had like, like Cletus, a slack-jawed yokel, like, which is probably, I'll probably get cancelled for saying that. So I don't know. They're probably not allowed to do that anymore. But slack-jawed, that kind of open mouth, gormless kind of thing. We're not supposed to be like that. You should have your mouth closed when you're not talking or eating and breathing through your nose. So that's the first point. And then the second part that goes with that is trying to then just breathe a little slower, a little less, and really starting to use your diaphragm and letting your rib cage expand and contract as you breathe, rather than the more maybe highly strung, stressed out person who's taking shallow, frequent breaths through their mouth into their like upper chest and neck, and like their shoulders are moving loads. And then there's just all this tension in their neck and shoulders. They're not breathing properly, and it's just bad news for your health and then your ability to improve your fitness and stuff. So the work starts nowhere near the bike. It's just to get those basics. And then we take it to the bike, and we're going to start by doing aerobic base training, basically, which is something I'm a massive fan of, which I'm always banging on about, is do your aerobic, low intensity, low aerobic training. Is that we want people to be able to do that nasal breathing only. So you should be able to go out and ride, at 130, 140 beats per minute for a couple of hours without opening your mouth except to drink from your bottle or talk. You should be able to have your mouth shut the whole time, nasal breathing whilst you do that aerobic training. And then, then we can look further down the line. Once we've got all the basics and fundamentals built, then we can look at, using some breathing before a race run and things like that, and just trying to control your breathing at different intensities and things like that.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I've been trying, like, since reading Nestor's book, I've been trying to do rides where all I'm doing is breathing through my nose and trying to control the tempo of that breath. And like at first it was pretty hard, but it sort of makes the ride a little bit easier once you get used to it. And it just, I guess it helps. It's helped me avoid the extremes of, completely blowing out and then having to recover, so, okay.
Yeah, it's really surprisingly trainable. Because the other thing is as well that even just your like nasal passages, it's like anything, use it or lose it, Sean, and if you're always breathing through your mouth, it just gets congested and smaller and like tighter, basically. And you can't get as much air up there. So when you start doing this, you think, oh my God, this is impossible. There's something wrong with my nose. I can't do this. And then they give up. And actually, you need to use it. You need to train it so that and your nose will open up. You will be able to get more air up there. You will be able to function at higher intensities. And, I can get within about 10 or 12 heartbeats of max heart rate these days, nasal breathing. Now I do run like quite low, just like it's just the way I am. My max is very high and stuff, but still, it's still pretty high, and it's taken just chipping away over a good few years to get there. But yeah.
Cool. Actually had this earlier on my list, but I figure it's a good time to go back to it. How does one figure out a fitness plan, but more importantly, how do they execute it for more than 3 days or a week or 2 days? I know a lot of it is just commitment and dedication, but do you have any insight into how one may be successful with starting a program?
You mean that long-term consistency to actually get results and make a difference? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, not just either giving up or burning out after a couple weeks.
Yeah, 100%. Because this is the key, isn't it? I mean, the fittest people are the ones who are the most consistent, and they do it week in, week out, month in, month out, and that's how you really build both health and fitness, that consistency, rather than short-term intensity followed by getting ill, getting burnt out, or just getting sick of it. So I think the first thing to look at is time. And this is for everyone really, but in particular the older middle-aged listeners. And there's always this temptation. It's like, right, I'm doing an event in the summer, so I need to get fitter. So I need to add 2 gym sessions to my diary and midweek Zwift ride, and then my normal 4-hour ride on the weekend or whatever. And you kind of do need to do those things or something thereabouts. But rather than thinking about adding all the time, because chances are your diary, like mine, Sean, is already busy. It's already got lots of stuff in it. And is adding more actually going to help? Because what you need to do first is subtract. So rather than just thinking, I'm going to add all this stuff to my already busy diary that I'm already struggling to keep up with because I'm stressed and tired and whatever, the first thing to do for a lot of people is subtract things. Like, where are the things I can take out of here to give me some time, to give me some space to do this, And so, and I really understand as well, it's easier said than done. But even if you carve out a few bits of time or just remove some nonsense from your life that just makes you busy but adds nothing, and it may be something simple, like if you can afford it, you get a cleaner for your house and it frees up a bit of time, or you get your shopping or groceries, whatever, delivered so you don't have to go to the supermarket for an hour. And then you rearrange your week with your boss, so you work from home one day and then that commuting time is freed up. Where can you just subtract so that when you add the training, you're then not trying to work at 110% all the time, because that's just destined to fail. So that's the first thing I'd say really is do that time audit, write out your week on a bit of paper or something, or spreadsheet, however you like to roll. Where's the time? How am I going to do it? And then think, right, I'm going to start with 2 45-minute strength sessions a week and an extra ride compared to normal. Because if you normally do 2 or 3 hours of exercise a week, don't think you're suddenly going to do 8 and just magically break it up. To say that this first few weeks we're going to add a couple of hours work, and see how we feel. Am I recovering? Am I making progress? Cool. You know what? This is going really well and I'm enjoying the process. I've got a bit fitter. So month 2, let's just add a little bit more. and see how that goes. And that's how it is, you know, and then accepting that it's not going to go to plan as well, and not beating yourself up about that. So when you get ill, or there's a family thing or a work trip that means you can't train for a few days, it doesn't mean everything's gone out the window and you need to get all demoralized and then just quit. You just make the best of the situation. I'm away on a work trip. Cool. I'm going to do some extra mobility in the hotel room, and I'm going to do some body weight work. It's not plan A. It's not what I would have done if I was at the gym at home, but it's certainly better than nothing. And then, you know, before I go and have the massive buffet breakfast at the hotel, I'm a little bit earlier, and I don't have a bike with me. But you know what? I'm in a new city, and I'm going to go and do a 40-minute walk before breakfast. Get a load of steps in, get some fresh air, burn some calories. You know what I mean? And just all of those things together, I think really help you to be consistent. And then just remembering like the why, because that's at the heart of it all. Why do you want to do it? Is it a race result? Is it your health? Is it, you know, wanting to beat your mates? Like whatever it is, just keep thinking of the why and how it's going to be worth it. Because if you put the work in, and if you are consistent, you will improve. And it's just such a great feeling when it happens.
It's good to hear, and it seems like it kind of lines up with that whole long game philosophy that you've been talking about.
Absolutely. I mean, not striving for perfection, because perfection, you know, is only going to leave you disappointed.
Sure.
I'm not saying you shouldn't set yourself high, lofty goals and hold yourself to high standards, you know, but it's also understanding that you're not going to go from, you know, 0 to hero overnight. You know, there's only so much progress you can make in a certain amount of time, and understanding it's a long road, you know. There's lots of different people listening to this, and I'm sure most of them are probably like pretty fit and stuff. You know, they're going to be riding like regularly. They're quite hardcore mountain bikers and stuff. And if you've been riding a long time, and you know, chances are your fitness is pretty static, you know, which may be absolutely fine if you're fit enough to do all the things you want to do, and you're a healthy weight and healthy and all that sort of thing, then that's cool. You know, then just keep looking after yourself. I would suggest everyone would benefit from some strength training just for that long game, to be a strong, well-rounded human, to make you more robust. But yeah, if you can't do the things you want to do because you've let it slide, you've got a bit overweight in COVID, or work got too stressful, or you had like twin babies or something, and you didn't get to ride your bike for 2 years, then just remember as well, you know, if it took you 2 years to get, I don't know, 30 pounds fatter and lots slower, then don't think that you're just going to lose it in 6 weeks as well. You've got to be realistic about your goals and your outlook, and just like, I'm just going to chip away. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to chip away. And, you know, I think too many people are focused on, I'm going to be really fit for spring, which is cool, you know, especially if you live somewhere snowy, you haven't ridden in ages or whatever. I'm going to be fit for spring. But yes, but actually, can we just change that approach a little bit to be like, I'm going to be really, really fit for next spring, and then for every spring, you know, rather than just like a short-term blast of intensity to be fit for spring, in inverted commas. Actually, you know, maybe we could play a bit more long-term and just do loads of aerobic base training. So maybe in spring, you don't quite have that high-end power and fitness that you might want from doing the intervals, but then you do the intervals later in the year. But because you did the base training, you're actually a way better rider, you're way fitter, and then you've got a great place to be fit for years to come as well.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I went on a tangent there. I got
No way. That's why we're here. That's why we've got all the time in the world.
Yeah.
Sort of along those lines, I noticed you had a video or two about mistakes that people make. You know, aside from having unrealistic expectations, you know, what mistakes might people make when they're trying to train or get themselves in a healthier spot?
So I think the first one is like I always come back to is copying the pros and stuff like that. You see their Instagram and you think, oh well, that's what they're doing. That's what I need to do. And like young like teenagers and stuff who are up and coming riders are really bad for that. Just wanting to copy that stuff, and they need to, those young riders, they just need to be doing the basics and really getting good at it. And we all know that the stuff the pros put up is just the interesting stuff. They don't show us all the boring routine stuff they do. The classic one that the average trail rider does in terms of fitness is they do too much riding at like moderate intensities. So it's too fast and too hard to really get an aerobic training benefit. But it's not really hard enough or intense enough to get that benefit of improving your like power at VO2 max, that real capacity. And most people, when they go for the group ride and stuff, that's where they fall in that moderate middle ground. And again, it may be that's absolutely fine because you're fit enough to do the things you want to do and you don't really need to be much fitter. And that's cool. But if you do want to be fitter, then you need to try and polarize things a bit more, is the approach I would take and that I generally recommend. And that's where you're going to do a lot of work at low intensity, so easier than your typical group ride, i.e. low heart rate, nasal breathing, like we chatted about earlier. And then you're going to do some really high intensity intervals to then really boost and peak that fitness, So I think most people just spend too much time riding at moderate intensities, which is why they then they stop making progress. They really plateau.
That's interesting.
It's funny with that one. I mean, part of it is because just naturally that's the pace the group ride goes at. And most of us love riding because we get to ride with our friends. That's a big part of it. And so you don't want to this is where it gets tricky, where I don't want to tell you to not go on the group ride and not go riding with your friends, because that's just stupid. But it may be that you need to find some time then separately in the week to do some of that low level aerobic training, or you tag on some aerobic miles before or after the group ride, or every 3 or 4 weeks, you don't go on the group ride, or maybe the group ride is an e-bike ride if you're all into that, and if you're all lucky enough to have one, because then you can ride like aerobically up the logging roads and stuff like that, because it makes it easier. So yeah, it is always a tricky game, that, especially when people are short on time, because the group ride for most people is too intense to really improve your fitness beyond a certain point.
Interesting. With that, let's say I have to make a choice. Is a long, low intensity ride going to benefit me more? I mean, obviously in a different way than like doing intervals. Like, is going the interval route, is that kind of for a specific type of strength and power and riding?
One's not better than the other. They're just different. But I would suggest that for most people listening to this, they would benefit more from developing their aerobic system, because most people's aerobic system is underdeveloped because they don't spend the time doing that low intensity work. Because when you first start doing this low intensity aerobic training, it feels too easy. You're like, I'm riding along, I'm not breathing very hard, my legs aren't burning, this is too easy, this can't possibly be working, this is ridiculous. And then men and our ridiculous egos get involved as well, because then you get overtaken by someone and you think, oh, I'm faster than them, I'm not going to get dropped by like the old lady, the old granny on a shopper bike or whatever, and then you start going too hard and then it's all wrecked. And what I always come back to, because I have this conversation all the time, with men mostly, women are a lot better at listening to this because they don't have the ego issues that we do, is that the fittest riders in the world, like the Grand Tour riders on the Tour de France, a lot of them, they share their Stravas and stuff like that. You can see what they're doing. And like 90% of what they do is aerobic base training. Now, their aerobic base training is faster than my threshold training, but to them, which is mental, but to them, that's aerobic base training. And I say, well, if Tom Pidcock, seems a bit of a legend, Tom Pidcock is doing 90% of his training at aerobic intensities, don't you think that, like, Dave from accounts should probably be doing a bit more aerobic, rather than thinking that all he needs to do is smash himself on Zwift until there's just a puddle left in his garage, Because, and it's a conversation I've had 100 times, and, is a message I always try and get across in articles I write and podcasts and stuff as well, because it's so important. And the other thing to think about as well, and this is a way of describing it, and I've only recently come across that I read somewhere, and I really liked it, is that when you do aerobic training, it actually creates new structures in the body. Yeah, so like increased capillary density through your muscle fibers, for instance. So imagine like geography lessons, you might see like a satellite image of a river delta with all the little tributaries coming off of it, and then you do your aerobic training, and now there's loads more tributaries coming off of the river. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's in your muscle fiber, so that then there's a better supply of oxygen and fuel to the muscle. So it's building new structures, and that's what's happening, and that's why aerobic development is slow, because there's real physical changes going on. Whereas the high intensity training that we do in intervals is making changes to the existing structures that are there. So if you're not very well aerobically developed, if you've not done that aerobic fitness, and few people have, then you get that quick improvement in fitness when you start intervals, like everyone gets in that first month if they do Zwift or train a road or any of those things. Bang, oh my goodness, I'm getting fitter, this is so good. But then 3-4 weeks and that's it, you're struggling, you're sweating, you're grinding, but there's not generally a great deal of improvement. And that's because you've made the adaptations, but now there's no more adaptations to have because you're not aerobically developed enough. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what we need to do is constantly have that exposure to aerobic training. And that's where the kind of classic idea of do your winter base miles and then add the intensity on top of it, that's where that comes in. Now, I also understand how difficult that is, especially, if, like me, you live in the UK or Northern Europe, or maybe like the Northern States or Canada, where the days are really short, it's really cold, it's really wet. So doing a 3 or 4 hour base ride in January is horrendous. You pretty much can't do it. You're frozen and wet and you're going to get sick. So you just need to do the best you can. And then as soon as the days get longer, as soon as spring comes round, now is the time that a lot of my boys are really ramping up their aerobic training, trying to catch up what they couldn't quite get done in the winter because it's been so wet in the UK here this year, for instance. Yeah.
Is there kind of a general timeline of how long it takes for that base aerobic level to get to a good point? I mean, are we talking months?
Yes, it depends what you call a good point and where you start from, really. I'd say that if you are, pretty diligent and consistent, then you're going to see, you're definitely going to see improvements in your aerobic fitness in 4 to 6 weeks. And the great thing about it is that if you continue, you'll continue to see progress for month after month after month, So, you'll make, who knows what it is. I can't give you a percentage or whatever, but
Right,
you'll improve in month 1 and you keep going, and you'll improve in month 2, you keep going, you improve in month 3, and month 4, and month 5, and month 6. And for most people listening who aren't very well aerobically developed, and you know what? I'm not being elitist here. I try hard to do it, but there's still plenty more I could do on this as well. I'm not saying, that everyone's unfit, but most people aren't that well aerobically developed, they can make progress for a couple of years on this, like literally.
Wow.
Because there's so much to be gained. That's why, most endurance athletes across a broad spectrum of sports, whether it's bikes or running, the best ones tend to be, later 20s into their 30s, because it's those years of huge training volumes to really, really, truly build that fitness. Now, there's obviously always, the freaks, and I mean that in the nicest term way, like the Pidcocks and the Vanderpoels and all that sort of thing who are coming through. But you can make progress on that for years, literally. Whereas with interval training, and I'm not saying intervals are bad, like someone would be like, oh, Ben from Strength Factory said intervals are no good, blah, 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 because that's what the internet's like. But I didn't say that. I'm just, they're great. I do them. My athletes do them. My everyday riders do them. But there's a limited return we're going to get on them unless you're also doing aerobic work as well.
Okay. Yeah. Huh. That's fascinating. All right. You brought it up, so I'm going to go there because you had a video, which I haven't watched yet, but your video was something along the lines of, will an e-bike make you less fit?
Yeah. So that one went crazy because am I allowed to say the other website beginning with P over there, Pink Bike?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did, it was hilarious. I did a video, I did my over 40s mountain bike fitness video, part 2. My other bike, my pedal bike, I think I was getting a shock service or something. So I rode my e-bike to do the video. Didn't even think anything of it. Managed to get the video on Pink Bike, which is really cool. Loads of people watch it. It's really great for my channel, blah, blah, blah. And oh my God, the comments went insane, Sean. And there are some people, this guy doesn't know shit about training. Look at him, he's riding an e-bike. This guy, don't listen to him. He says, oh my goodness, it went mad. Like all weekend, people were fighting in the comments. It was amazing, absolutely amazing. And so then basically to prod the bear a little bit, literally a week later, I put out a video. I made it very quickly, turned it around saying, will e-bikes make you less fit, basically.
Yeah, that's a genius idea.
Yeah. And had a bit of fun with it. But going back to what we talked about earlier with the bodyweight training and the Garmin watch and all that stuff, an e-bike in terms of fitness, it's just another tool, and it's how you use it. Obviously, to most people, an e-bike is just loads of fun. I love mine,
Yep.
But for fitness, it's a tool that gives you way more control over your level of effort and intensity compared to your mountain bike, So I can, if where you live is pretty steep, then you can't stay aerobic on a mountain bike ride. It's just too steep. You can't, even with Eagle or whatever, you can't do it. On an e-bike, you can. On an e-bike, if I'm tired and sore from training, or if a pro rider has got a packed training plan and it's really intense, but the weather's good and there's a good crew going riding, they can still get out and work on skills, and yeah, and to me as well, I think there's a lot of benefits as well with getting much more descending in within a certain period of time. It's like denser or more dense, sorry.
Sure.
For that upper body and hands and all that sort of thing, for like toughening you up. If I could do one lap every 15 minutes or every 20 minutes pedaling, I can do 3 times that on the e-bike. And now I've just got this massive dose of improving my skills and also manhandling a heavy bike off-road, developing that, the most realistic strength training you can get, isn't it? For mountain biking is that, or riding motocross maybe. So
I think e-bikes are a blast for the exact reasons you mentioned. So,
yeah, I
yeah,
think
that's awesome. They're going off on you
yeah,
though.
most of the comments I don't think had one or have ever ridden one. They're purists of some sort, but I'm
For
not sure
sure.
what.
Yeah. All right, we'll get to wrapping it up. Tell me about the racers that impress you for whatever reasons, and then go into the programs and the things that you offer through what you do, and then we can.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess when I look at who I work with, like my biggest name rider is Joe Smith, who's obviously a legend of the sport.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, second at hardline on flat pedals last year. He
So
also,
gnarly.
yeah, so gnarly. And I've been working with Joe for a good few years now. And we actually both ride for Vitas as well. So,
Mhm.
which is pretty sick.
Yep.
They've just obviously launched over there. Kyle Straight's on board.
Yep. Mhm.
So that's pretty cool. So yeah, I really look to Joe. Like next week, I'm running a training camp for Joe and a load of other quick UK lads over here. And just he's got he brings a lot to that as well, which is cool. So every time I get to go riding with him, I love like the first 2, maybe 3 turns if I'm having a good day before he drops me. Where, you just see this just how does he bloody do that? There's this wizard, just like how easy it is.
Mhm.
And then I guess the other person that I'm really rooting for this year he's another ginger English person, actually, Charlie Hatton.
Yeah.
Because I coached Charlie from when he was about 15, from when he was a youth through juniors into his first couple of years elite, before he then moved further up north, and he's in the very obviously capable hands of Alan Milway now, and he was right up there last year, him and Andreas Kolb there on the Atherton bikes. And
Yeah.
like he's the one that I really, really want to see just crush it at the World Cups this year. Like I'd be so happy to see him on a podium. Just a amazing rider that we all know, but just such a good person as well. So I really want the best for him. So that's
Cool.
cool.
Awesome.
And then so like I said, I mean, I coach pros and dads and middle-aged and all sorts in between. And then the other part of what I do is, online programs, basically. So I've got like a real range that tries to cater for the different types of people I work with. And I guess the first one I think that a lot of your guys might be interested in is my over 40s mountain bike program, because it just ticks all the boxes about all the things that we've talked about playing the long game. It's a bit kinder to your body, a bit easier to recover from. We've also got the breathing and breath work and mobility work in there and things like that. And that's been massive over the last few years. Like people all over the world have been using that and getting really great results, and grumbly knees and sore backs have been like cleared up and stuff like that, just with a different, I can't promise miracles, but for a lot of people it's made riding a lot more comfortable and pain-free, and enabled them to enjoy it more than they were before. And it's got options for training in the gym or at home with just your pull-up bar and some bands and stuff like that. So that's pretty sick. And then for the more maybe guys who are already a little bit fitter or a bit younger or a bit more performance focused, and I've got the complete mountain bike program and the complete downhill program. So the downhill one and mountain bike one, as you guessed, really, the DH one is more for your DH racers, and then the mountain bike program is more for your trailer and enduro rider. And they still apply my general principles, building a better human and stuff like that, but it just starts from a slightly higher level. And they're both gym-based programs as well. And pretty stoked to be able to offer the Vital readers and listeners a bit of a discount code if you're up for that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Cool. So they're all delivered via an app, and we'll get some links down in the description. But
Okay.
if you use the code VITAL40, so 40, for the over 40s program, or Vital MTB for the complete mountain bike program, or Vital DH for the downhill program, that will give you 20% off for all of those until the end of May. And we'll get links up and stuff like that to square you away. And I also think, Sean, we need to get you hooked up with a program by the sounds of it as well.
Yeah, I'm down to get on. That'd be awesome. And thanks for the discount for our listeners. That's super cool.
No worries. It's it's really cool to do one with you guys over the pond there, you know, and yeah,
awesome. Well, I know I've learned a ton just listening, and yeah, I'm pretty excited. If you're serious, I'd love to take you up on what a program might look like for someone like me, and yeah, getting into it. But I hope everyone else out there has learned a lot. I know I have, and yeah, it's been a pleasure. Appreciate you taking the time to be on today.
No, that's cool. Thank you so much, Sean. I really appreciate it. And to all the guys listening, I'm an open book. I really try hard to reply to everyone, you know. So if you've got any questions off the back of this podcast, you know, slide into my DMs or go to the website, fill out the contact form. I'm not going to spam you with loads of stuff. But if you've got any questions about anything I said today, then hit me up and I'll do my best to get back to you. I'll do my best to help you guys out. Okay.
Cool. And it's thestrengthfactory.uk, right?
That's correct. That's the website. And then Instagram is strengthfactory_coach.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it.
Cheers, dude. Have a great weekend.